And so it expands. Greetings to all of you, beloved ones that sit here joined together today. I am Ekara. And yes, if you thought my entry took a little long, that is true. I like a little bit of showbiz, you see. But I say this for a reason. For this entry that you simply saw take place only a few seconds ago, in the days to come, no longer will be necessary. No longer a space will exist between that which you call your realm and that which we call our realm, which you in the past have called home, or Hanemea, or some call it the Lemurian beaches. The space between that and where you exist today is rapidly fading away. When Kuan Yin introduced the work that we are going to do here today, just now, she talked about the shift from vibrational to tonal space. And she talked about vibrational misalignment. Those that sit here within this group today that have daily or most daily experiences with us within the work that we do will know about vibrational misalignment. And I today would like to give everyone here and everyone out there an overview of what exactly this is. So let's get going. Oh look, love, joy, freedom, truth, life. How very old century. Instead, my beloved human family, why don't we focus on what is real? And what is real is where love begins. And love begins in the heart. So instead of sitting there like ice popsicles, why don't you get up for a minute and give each other a hug? I have not seen my brother in 2 years, and I want to give him a hug. Vibrational misalignment, a technical term to describe the universe that you as a species for the last thousands of years have actually existed in. Why? Simple. You have one human, you have another human, you have a third human, you have a fourth human. All of these humans emit vibration. All of them in their own unique way. And as you of course know, the vibrational realm is a horizontal realm, which means it happens on the surface level. Out of vibration, frequencies are born. You must know this by now. These frequencies are no longer vibrational, but they are vertical. Therefore, they exist on top of all of these layers here. The frequencies within each vibration determine the speed of that vibration, and therefore determine the speed at which the vibration will move forward and the direction it will take. This happens with every human on the planet, with the processing of every thought that is had. Alright? So, obviously, as you can already see from the mess that is occurring simply in a two-dimensional realm, trying to explain it, it ain't good. Not so much. When you have conflicts with each other, it simply means that your energy is not here and the other person's energy is not here, but you're somewhere on the middle of any of these points. Yes? You're existing outside of your own center at that point. When this happens, and this is a quick wink to my beloved friend Tobias, when this happens, aspects are born. Now, this is an aspect. Yeah, nobody said I could spell, right? Aspects are born. What are aspects? I'll very simply explain. This is the total you as you are born. As you come out of your mama, this is what happens to you. Your energy field gets cut in half. You know this by now. This has been said many times before. One part of it forms the male energy. One part of it forms the female energy. The part that you exist in determines the gender that you come into the planet with. The other part, let's say you come in female, the masculine part at that point, and this has nothing to do with heterosexuality or homosexuality or anything, just how reality is organized. The other part gets spread across the matrix in attributes. Attributes that you will find on anything. For instance, an attribute could be the fact whether you like a cup of coffee or whether you like a cup of tea. Whether you like your cup of coffee with milk or sugar, or whether you simply like it black, which these days is politically incorrect to say. You have to say coffee without milk. But then I'm dead, so I don't care. Attributes get spread all across the matrix and all across your universe, and while you think, well, that have to be a lot of attributes that get spread, I have always told you that your universe is not so big. Your universe only contains the achinaic space that is around you. It gets created from the heart space, from the achinae, and reaches out about here, if you will. That is about the space that you have around you that is real. Everything else gets projected onto the walls of that sphere. And I'll get back to that later, so as to not distract you. But these attributes, therefore, do not have to move far out of the way to actually influence your universe completely. Now, some of these attributes are passive. Some of them are passive. Some of them are active. Passive attributes are the ones that I already explained to you. Liking a cup of coffee or liking a drink of water or not. Liking a certain outfit, not liking a certain country, liking a certain person, not liking a certain attitude or not, or all of those things. That's passive attributes. They therefore exist outside of you. Note to the Imzaia team, get me a bigger billboard next time. They therefore exist outside of you. Active aspects, attributes, is what I want to talk to you about today. Because active attributes form aspects. Passive attributes exist in the space around you. They literally are in the cup of coffee as you are in its field, and they will influence the cup of coffee. But the active ones are inside of your psyche, inside of your mind. And they form aspects in the end. Aspects are what makes up your personality. Many people think, when they go through their day, that they are an identity, that they are a personality, and while that unfortunately for most is the case, they do not realize that this personality is not a one-time event. It is not formed in one moment, and it does not stay the same. It continually changes. Active aspects come out of that personality, go back into the passive nature of reality outside, and the other way around. There's always a mix going on. Therefore, you could say that your personality is made up of a bunch of active aspects, the result of vibrational and frequential space, the way your universe has worked until now, basically, literally now, you know. It's an interesting time to be alive in, I have to say, my beloved human family. Now, if you look at the active aspects in your life, they will change and take frontal position about every 2 or 3 seconds. So let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say, for instance, that you say a sentence like, I am hungry, but I don't like your spaghetti. It sucks. Right. Daily sentence of human reality, yes? Except for the spaghetti. Okay, now if you look at this sentence and you look at this thought, you would say, oh yeah, that's just a person saying that thought. You know, it's one personality, and it's not a very conscious person because there's judgment in there, and there's no realization in there that one creates one's universe and things like that. But that's not exactly what is happening. If you have the person that says this sentence, which is not a very happy person, going bald, see, only one ear, a brother of a famous painter that we all know, this person is thinking this thought. But this person is made up of a lot of active and passive aspects. It makes up its personality, yes? Now the active aspects, if we are looking at this sentence, are shifting several times within this sentence. There is an I that says the beginning of the sentence, basically. There is an am, there is a hungry, there is a but, there is an I don't, there is a like, there is the spaghetti, there's your, and there's the sucking part. So what we have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 aspects being used to explain one concept to the external world. 9. And everyone thinks this person, Kim, let's say, is just saying to someone that they don't like the spaghetti that's being offered at that point. You see? Now, why do you think that Kim is made up of 9 aspects? First of all, the I. This is the first aspect that comes to the fore, that is being used in most sentences in human history, but it is what we call, where am I going to write this? A flexible aspect. A flexible aspect has the ability to continually shift within the power of one person's mind. And if these things are not immediately understood, don't worry, we'll come back to that as time goes on. So the I, the flexible aspect, is the one that pretends it is the leader of the pack. It is the one that pretends to be Kim. But it is not Kim, because Kim is made up of hundreds and hundreds of aspects, which only in one sentence 9 come to the fore. The am aspect of Kim is what you would call the only conscious aspect that exists within this whole. I will come back to that and explain to you why. Hungry, another aspect. The aspect that is completely identified with the physical reality. The but aspect is a very interesting one as well. The but aspect is the one that will invoke the shift between aspects. I am now using a sentence to explain this to you, but as the day progresses, we're going to take this from sentences into feelings. And we're going to take this into a complete understanding of how you work without allowing you to go completely mad up here, thinking who you really are. So this is the changeable one. Now we have the I don't. The I don't aspect is a very interesting one because it is actually self-negating. This is an aspect that negates its own existence. Self-negating. Here we have the bio aspect. If we then move to the like, then we come back to the bio aspect of hungry. But this we're going to call bio 2. Your is the aspect, if you will, that externalizes everything. Alright? So we're going to call this the external judgmental aspect. And then we have, of course, the spaghetti. Now, the spaghetti in this sentence is the only passive aspect that is coming to the fore, right? Because it has to do with the external universe and the attributes that get cast out that I just told you about. Then we come back to it sucks. Now this is going to be very interesting for the rest of the day. This is what we call the power aspect. So what we are seeing, if we really look at this, is actually quite a bundle of madness, quite a bundle of inconsistency, and quite a bundle of human communication, I would say. This is a negative sentence, but it is a sentence that is spoken every day, so many places on earth. The person who spoke this sentence does not realize that there are 9 beings inside of it forming the sentence. And therefore, some of my friends, like Adamus, will say that humanity basically is possessed by itself, possessed by its own mind, possessed by its own shattered, frequential self. Alright? So if I go back to right here, we were talking about the arrival on Earth, the immediate cut that gets made, your energy gets split up in half. Let's say you are a female, all of your masculine aspects and attributes get shattered in the world and get shattered in your mind. Yes? So Kim, what Kim doesn't understand, unfortunately, is that when he speaks and when he expresses, you could see him as a video projector. You know, one of those old slide projectors that you used to have on Earth. You click a button and the next slide comes in. That's basically how Kim's psyche works. But what happens to him is that it happens about 9 times in 5 seconds here, in this case. All these different aspects. Now, we have conscious aspects, and we have unconscious aspects. Alright? The unconscious aspects, both of these are active. But the unconscious aspects are the ones that you have been working with for most of your life. Reason being that until not so long ago, conscious aspects either didn't exist in most humans, and when they did, they were called naive, stupid, dreamers, all of that stuff. Yeah? If you look into your human language, and specifically in the last 500 years or so, then you will see that throughout the build-up of history that you have had, specifically in the English language, but also in other languages like Dutch or African languages, whatever, more and more words have been taken and have been turned around to create a different psychological feeling. For instance, someone who was naive about 300 years ago simply was someone who was closely in touch with nature. That's naive. Before the English Queen made her appearance recently. And then things started changing. Well, she's about 500 years now, isn't she? And things started changing. A new dictionary, a new language, new symbols, new meanings for words were slowly but surely beginning to be introduced. That was the beginning of the alteration of the human psyche. That then went into vibrational and frequential medication, sound frequencies changing all around you, sirens building up everywhere, and all of that stuff that you can read about in beloved David Icke's work. All of that stuff coming to an end now. But if you look back to the unconscious aspects and to the conscious aspects, then you see why the split up has happened, and why, since Lemurian times, I would say, the conscious aspects, as we label them, have slowly but surely disappeared. It has been the mission of beings like yourself on this planet Earth to bring all of that energy back, to bring a new way back. And this way we call tonality. And tonality has to do with the conscious aspects. What happened to human psyches so far is that throughout one's evolution, throughout one's life, let's go back to Kim. Throughout one's life, the build-up of all these unconscious aspects happen. There's only a few of them, and they cluster together. And they form the personality. Some of you know this. I've just explained it in a slightly different way. The cluster of that which has been called your personality, however, does not have the ability within itself, inherited, to go through the ascension process. Whether it's the ascension of self process, or whether it's the ascension of all matter process that is underway as we speak, that is in its last days as we speak, does not have the ability to ascend. It is where the increase in chaos is coming from, and it is where the increase in vibrational misalignment is coming from. It is why more and more beings are having issues being connected, and why more and more feel alone on the planet, disconnected, not understood throughout history. This is why the unconscious cluster that has been your personality, ladies and gentlemen, no longer has the ability to magnetize, to create cohesion, to come together. And that is why you are finding people reacting very strangely to one another these days. It is why, more than ever before, a molehill can be turned into a mountain between people. More than ever before. It is because this cluster that has had some sort of cohesion in the past, called personality, identity, and therefore celebrated, yes, it's falling apart. Maybe one day this one is sticking out like a sore thumb. And that one is sticking out like something else that's sore. And this one is sticking out. And then comes the day that these three start battling. And when they do, they will look for another human being on the planet that has similar unconscious aspects, and they start engaging each other. That's what's happening now. But that's also what's coming to an end. Going into the heart space, opening up, living from the heart, all of that stuff will bring forth the conscious aspects of oneself, which before now hardly have had the ability to cluster together. Let's say, for instance, here, back to Kim. Kim said, I am hungry. Am being a conscious aspect, but stuck in an entire charade of unrealness, of untruth. This is not really what Kim is feeling. It can't be. Because Kim, if he was really feeling that, he would have no ability to be on the planet. What is feeling that is the matrix. What is feeding that is the matrix. When you allow yourself to go to your unconscious aspects, you basically, pardon the pun, become Matrix's bitch. You may as well ask for a leash to be put on and to be taken on regular walks, which actually is beginning to happen to humans more and more, actually, if you really think about it. But in all of these aspects, only one conscious one. And then you have the flexible aspect that keeps changing things around, that keeps opening things up. So, taking it back to all the way here, we were talking about aspects. We were talking about vibrational misalignment within the frequential realm that gets created as people interact with each other or with passive attributes that are around. Yes? Alright. These aspects, the conscious ones that are going to be created, are finding a new way to communicate with each other without killing each other. How original. Conscious aspects. There we go. Tonality. Okay, let's do this again from a new way. Now imagine a human here, and a human here, and a human here. Conscious aspects which before were not able to cluster together because of all of these things that I just explained were happening to Kim vibrationally and frequentially are emerging for the first time since a long time and have the ability to connect together. Love, joy, freedom, truth, life, active ingredients with which you create your reality. But what happens when two conscious aspects, instead of these unconscious ones we are talking about, hook up? What happens? No longer that war of personality parasite that goes on in one's head. Instead, every time two of these aspects or more, remember the old days, cluster together, a tone is created. It has been said before, imagine rain falling on a lake. As the raindrops fall, the circle widens, more and more circles get born, and these circles interact. Yes? Within the connectivity of these circles, communication exists. Different than the vibrational communication you've had before. So, these circles get wider. Start here too. Wider, wider, wider. And at this point, they touch. Right. So, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say, conscious aspects that have hooked up, and in their ability to connect and cluster together, they now are finding matching tones with other humans. It's like what brings you to places like this, to communicate and create a new reality view. So, what happens here in these zones? These zones, once called vibrational space, once called frequential space, no longer create interaction, rather they create a stable field. Now, it may not sound like too much of a thing to say, okay, a stable field, that's cool. But let me tell you, humanity, that on all of these years that you've been on Earth, you have not had the experience of a stable field. Reason being, gravity. Stability. Opposites. This is what the planet is doing today. This is what the planet will be doing on the 28th. 22, 28. Does that mean that the planet will stop, that your reality will stop, that the experience of gravity will stop? No. But it does mean that no longer is humanity being funneled into one point, one box, one computer system, operating system, and it isn't even Mac, it's PC, it's really bad. So, we've got the human PC, right? No longer being funneled into this, no longer being pulled into the depth of gravity, which then becomes the physical experience, which then becomes the body, with everything that can go wrong with that, as we all know. Instead, that funnel ends, and a true field of stability is created. Now, humanity often asks, so does this mean that the universe as we know it is coming to an end? Yes. Does this mean that it's coming to an end as we know it on the 28th? Yes and no. Does this mean that we have to wait for a long time before we can experience it coming to an end? No. Kuan Yin, before I came in, explained to you that as things are progressing, the box through which humanity literally has been channeled gets replicated into the individual proper. Yes? So, let's say that we have a bunch of humans again who so far have been locked into one reality paradigm. Instead now, this is a new template. Humanity creates their own matrix, each individually. What can happen then with active, conscious aspects in place? Here we go, the beginning of the tonal field. It starts to go out. Yes? And I've just explained this. What, however, happens to this matrix construct as you take this step, as you take this choice? I'm using a lot of paper here. Okay. The matrix starts to break down. And power cup. This is basically the evolution, the simple, abstract evolution of the human psyche going into complete tonality. Alright? The matrix, of course, exists of 4 points. Mind, body, spirit, and what we call ish. Yes. Yes. Taking control of this collapses mind, body, spirit, and ish into spirit, body, ish. Mind gets wiped away. Mind, the processor that kept it all together. Yeah. People don't understand this. They say, something wrong with my mind. I've got something on my mind. Something wrong with your mind. No. No mine, no yours. There's just a mind. And it controls all of humanity. And it processes all of this together. So, what you've been going through as you've had these beautiful experiences leading up to the 28th of October, nothing wrong with the physical body, of course, no pressure in the head, no dizziness, no nothing. Everything's still as easy as ever before, yes, I know. That's the breakdown of mind. That's the body, and the spirit, and the ish, which some have called, I guess, chi. Collapse of that into spirit, body, and ish. That phase is now. That phase is happening right now. And that is what you are feeling right now. So it's been going on with human evolution in the last 10 years, perhaps. Maybe longer. These days we are 2011, aren't we? Yes. Started with the convergence, continued with the concordance, continued with the Venus transit, all events happening in the 80s, 90s and early 2000s. All of that having to do with the collapse of mind. These days, people talk about all of these trinings and squares are happening in astrology. The ability to see Jupiter. And what's happening to the moon? She's all over the place. What's happening to the sun? She's twice as big. All of that. Same reason. Collapse of mind. The system that was holding all of that together is going. And for the first time, humanity is taking responsibility to stand on its own 2 feet. When it learns how to do that, is also what has been labeled the departure of Gaia. Now, to some people that is a strange concept. It's a bit of a difficult concept to understand. Doesn't mean that Gaia doesn't like you anymore. It doesn't mean that the planet is about to explode, but it does mean that the form, the thought form, the spirit and the ish that held the physical universe together is stepping down. And technically speaking, ladies and gentlemen, this means that you will no longer be living in a physical universe. And this is a dangerous thing to say, you know. It's a dangerous thing to say, because literally what it means is that you can do anything you want. No God, no concept of good or bad, mind being God, obviously. No concept of up or down or left or right or 3 dimensions or 5 dimensions or 10 dimensions or 7 chakras, 13 chakras, none of that. None of that. But, as Kuan Yin has stated at the beginning, the move from the chaotic to the simplistic. Many of you have been on this planet a while, have come in, have left again, have done things in Atlantis, have done things in Lemuria, have had the ability to go into shamanic adventures in other lifetimes. Some of you that sit here and some of you listening are even involved in the creation of the Mayan calendar all of those years ago. But I ask you now, human race, what has it brought you? What has it brought you? All of these complicated ways of working with energy. Oh, let me heal you very quickly now. I know how to do it. I've had a 3-year course. My hands have been blessed by Gaia, and when I met Ronna Herman and Michael said something about my hands, and now I have these special abilities. Yay! Yeah. And this is how to do it, yeah. Okay, you have to lay on your belly, but you also have to hang from the ceiling. You have to make sure there's no blood going through your head, though, and maybe then you can be healed. Yes, simple. I think not. Complicated? Yes. All of that is the chaos that has been building up through all of those eons as humans have tried to make sense of this clustering of unconscious aspects, the result of all of these attributes that I've just been speaking about, basically. And even energy systems, even healing systems that we were just talking about, shamanic systems, all became extremely complicated, all became ritualistic. Now, if there's any reptiles in the room, you'd like that word. Because the beautiful reptilian race that has been part of the mind of humanity for so long has lived of ritual, has fed energy of ritual. You see this not only in things that you think about when you speak about Bohemian Grove and all of those dark sides of things, that, yes, the feeding took place there. But the feeding also took place in healing ritual, in shamanic ritual, in all of these things that you are told to do in a certain way. And yes, it gives you the ability to move through some of those unconscious aspects and to break through, but with a massive energy loss at that point. Because all of that original energy that you started out with, at that point is simply gone. Used up, fed off by beings that are not exactly wanting to see things happen a different way. Mind coming to an end. Not to say that all of these beings that have been discussed throughout the years all over the planet as dominating the human species are going to be ended, are going to come to an end. No. As this breaks down, the square simply changes into the triangle. And the fourth point moves into the center point. Which means that the energy that we talk about, such as reptilian energies and things like that, are experiencing an awakening as well. Are experiencing an opening of the heart as well. It is not so strange to think this, considering it happened to humanity several 100,000 years ago. In humanity's move from what you have labeled Mars to what you now know as Earth. Humanity hasn't always been the amazing, beautiful race that it is today. Every part of consciousness is on the same journey. Alright? So, that is basically what is occurring. And as Gaia, the parts and the physical Earth as you know it will be literally held together by the replication of the matrix in everyone's individual minds. It is going to become a very interesting time on your planet. Because everything you have been studying for, everything you have been researching for, looking for, moving towards, is all coming to an end. Isn't that cool? School is out. And it's, I believe, time for all of you, and not just the ones here in this room, but everyone out there, to start making some decisions. Therefore, what is happening in the coming time is that we will no longer, except for these few occasions still, no longer come in here as teachers, as channeled beings, all of that. We, Pah Ekara, and many others with me, like Kuan Yin before me, have begun the walking process. We will physically, all of us, be joining back with you here to work not from the teacher position, but directly from the colleague, the fellow position, and to start changing the paradigm of humans that no longer need to create through the mind. Now, some of you who have been around Ascended Masters for a while have seen things happen. Have seen, for instance, that at will the sun can stop going down and start coming up again. Have seen all of these events take place directly in their lives. Some small, some large. It is now time for you guys to start spreading this knowledge and this little bit of magic, perhaps, to the rest of humanity. And this will be the point of the Imzaia organization, and I'm pretty sure many other organizations with her at that point, to collapse the mind into spirit, body, ish. Now, here we are dealing with October 2011, of course. In this next incarnation of things that is about to take place, this shift from a three-pointed universe to a two-pointed universe is happening between this October 28th date and what many of you have unfortunately labeled 2012. Most particularly the date of December 2012. Now, I don't want to go into too many details here, but we all know that the 2012 date is a complete fake, is a complete sham. At least it started out that way. When the Mayan calendar was created and the end of history would take place this year, this 28th of October date, in which all of these changes that humanity psychologically has been preparing for are unfolding, when all of that system was created by that which you call the elders, the point of the Mayan system was to literally create a system. Before there was none. The only system that existed was the system of mind. And we already know the chaos and the ritualistic nature of that. So, in order to level the playing field, it became necessary for what you would call the other side to create a system that would encapsulate not only the ruling of darkness, but also the ruling of light. And therefore you get a system within the Mayan calendar that encapsulates all of these different energies and gives them their moment in the sun on a regular basis, if you will. However, as this, throughout the centuries, was being discovered as this now integrated dark side, if you will, started realizing what exactly had happened to it, a backup plan was created by those guys, let's say. And the end date of the calendar was moved. It was moved by very cleverly introducing translation errors between a language that now no longer properly existed and calendars that from now on would be incomplete after the entry of Christianity into that domain on earth. And therefore, in the calculatory process, 2012 was created. The original idea is to create apocalypse. The original idea is to create the end of the world the way your Hollywood movies had shown it. Some of these movies are ridiculously stupid, but still they put ideas in the human mind, and the human mind can create reality. This is why it is so important that between the October 28th, 2011 date and this December 2012 date, all over the earth, the human mind, in each of its individualized boxes at that point, collapses. Because that is the only thing that will have the ability to lead right here. Some call it 21st, some call it 22nd, nobody can really figure that one out either. But what we have here is a very specific integration period. In just over a year's time, we believe individually, as beings, that mind will no longer exist on this planet. And you're going to help with that. That's why you're here. That's not just why you're here today, but it's why you're on the planet. And it's why you have been preparing. Unfortunately, many of you, not just the ones sitting here today, but many of you, have the problem that the waiting period has been so extremely long. And sometimes, I mean even in your lifetimes, and sometimes practice has turned to theory. Sometimes what has happened to many humans who have listened to one channeling after another, who've read one book after another, they will say, oh yes, of course, things are like this. Then you will ask them, so how do you know that? And they will say, well, I don't know. The group told me, Michael told me, or I read it in Carl Culliman's book. Those are the early ones. But now imagine people on the journey for 20 years, for 40 years, who maybe in the 1960s and the 1970s read the Seth material when it first came out. Today, we are 2011. What do you think the mind will do? It will take those theories and will say, well, these theories are my practice. But the truth is that the practice is still theory. Another example outside of the spiritual arena, for instance. Let's say you all believe that the earth rotates around the sun. Yes, most of you do. Thank God. It would be a bit of a different audience otherwise. But let's say that you all believe that the earth moves around the sun. Why do you believe this? Because you have actually flown off the planet and actually seen it for yourselves? Have you actually left the planet? Have you gone out maybe even and seen the earth rotate around the sun? Or has it been taught to you as a theory in school? Many of these theories become your practice without you ever having practiced them. And that is exactly what mind has always done. As mind now is collapsing, and we have a unique opportunity here to do something about what is happening in this period. We have the ability to avoid this collapse of all things. The difference between this date and this date is that we are talking about the end of mind, the end of reality, physical reality as you know it. Over here, if that plan had come to pass, which it won't, we are talking about the end of all things life. And that is the purpose. Because the eventual purpose of the Matrix's creation is to, why this thing was added here, is to eventually turn Ish into Neha, into death, into extinction, into the lack of life, into no. And that is already happening to many humans on your planet. It's those humans that unfortunately, when you try to interact with them, you can't. There will be simply a machine, whether it's in a personal setting or whether it's in an official setting, simply a mental machine that answers. You have seen this happen in your own realities, and while you may still see it increase here and there, I, Ekara, believe that in this spirit we have to work with here, we have a chance to completely destroy mind's theory and to integrate it into the human being once again. And that is what we are proposing. So, as we move from this period to this period, the 2011 to the 2012 period, you are about to enter the most important time in your existence. And humanity is about to enter it as well. But all of you and people like you are going to be that which becomes the template for the new humanity. So as we eventually move from the 3-point system to the 2-point system at the end of what is now labeled 2012, we are dealing with simply spirit and ish. Yes? At that point in time, the body system will have collapsed, and physical, internalized reality, as you know it, will no longer be taking place. This is when you enter the realms of what you would call light body, where reality is now so non-physical, so fluid, so without mind, and therefore mindless, that the complexity of having to create in every second of every moment in time the human body with all of its stuff, all of the things that happen within it, will cease. And of course, eventually, we will simply move into the one-point field, the true concept of what we call the universe will truly come to pass. For no longer will there be the need for spirit to connect supposedly disconnected individuals. This is the true return to self. It is taking place in your lifetime. It is taking place right now. So, where we saw the ritualistic, yes, we are going back to the concept of universal. And now comes the time, or at least in the afternoon comes the time, where I and others will have to explain to you what the purpose of the universe, as you have created it, truly is. And the purpose that intervened with it truly was. But it is our intent, mine and that of the others, that when you leave here tonight, a full overview will have been given of what has truly been happening with you for all of those years, all of those lifetimes. And that pleases me and many others with me greatly. It has been our duty for a very long time to separate ourselves from you and to present work such as this one. But as I have already said, our walk-in processes, our return to physicality, my own, but also Adonis's, Katumi's, and others, are in progress. And you will see all of it play out between now and the time that I have just discussed these things with you. It is our hope that these things will happen soonerish rather than laterish, as some would say here, and that we can join hands physically as you step forward as the army of awareness, if you will, doing what you came here to do together with us. So beautiful, Imzaia friends and family. I will probably be here again later today at some point, but in the meantime, I wish you happy integration. I hope that you will take from this what you feel belongs to you, and that you will pass on what you feel belongs to others. For that is the way how those pieces as well will eventually return to you. I am Ekara. It is my honor to come to the end of these cycles of guidance. I will see you later. And so it is.